Let's go, offense, let's go.
Hello and welcome into day 4 of Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. Picture perfect morning here in Owings Mills, Maryland, as the team is on the far field this morning for day 4 of Training Camp of Phase 3 here, as we approach what is a 4-day stretch of practice for the team, and we're creeping closely towards week 1. Guys getting their early stretch in here after an off day. A special guest here for Training Camp Live, and look who it is, the one and only Lamar Jackson. Lamar, I can't see your eyes, man, but you look dialed in. How are we feeling about day 4?
Yeah, I'm dialed in right now. You know, I got a drug test, so I'm a little late to that. But, yeah, you guys started with me instead of Ryan. I'm trying to work on my little podcast going on, you know. Might take a job.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to stay here, give Mink
camp.
the helmet. I'm ready to roll for the next 30 minutes with you, Lamar, as
Davis
always.
edition, Lamar edition.
No better way to start Training Camp Live than with Lamar Jackson. Ryan Mink, that was an exclusive. Well done.
Yeah, there you go. You know, I get the guests. I bring the guests.
Look, man, we've got 3 days here, and he's back. He's back for more. We got 3 days here, and that's the best way to kick off day 4. There's an off day. We've had some time to digest what we've seen. They're in shells and helmets today, so a little bit of a lighter pace of intensity, but still an important day of work. But when you look at the 3 days here, as the guys get some stretch in, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think it's been a really strong 3 days overall for the team. I mean, if we're talking about specific things, I think number one, it's the young wide receivers. They've really looked good so far for the Ravens. So I think that the Ravens have a lot of potential there with rookies, Devin Duvernay. You have James Prochet. I think those guys have looked really good so far off the jump. So I think Miles Boykin has really kind of taken a step forward here in year 2 for him. It's been an impressive start for him.
And when you also look at this group here, James Prochet will show you some highlights. He made some along with Duvernay and Boykin in the last padded practice on Wednesday. There's also the additions to a young pass rush and how that group, I think, Ryan, has at least early in the padded portion of things shown that they're going to be able to get after things. Tyus Bowser, I know, was one name that jumped out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Tyus has looked really good. He's entering a big year for him. Year 4, it's a contract year. Coming off a career high in sacks, he was second on the team last year in sacks. So I think that if he can take a jump from 5 and get into double digits this year, wow, what a difference that'll make. I mean, you've seen Tyus. I've been impressed with his bull rush. I mean, he's not a huge, big body guy, but he's added some muscle or something, because that bull rush is looking nice. And it's some spin moves. I mean, it just seems like he's kind of added to his repertoire, and he could be in for a big season, kind of as a real pass rush specialist behind Matthew Judon, and a guy they could work into different packages. But it's not just him. I mean, I think Pernell McPhee has looked good coming off the tricep injury. He's going to bring some heat. I mean, he got off to a nice start last year. And then Jalen Ferguson's back on the field for his practice today, number 45 there on your screen. So he's going to be a big part of this outside linebacker group, obviously. I probably expect him to be the starting outside linebacker opposite Judon. So I think the pass rush has looked really nice. And, of course, Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe, those 2 additions up front. Calais Campbell's wrecking shop right now. And you know, obviously that's a two-pronged thing. You want to see the offensive line do well, but Calais Campbell looks really good so far as a Raven.
Yeah, he's been the pulse of training camp thus far, along with Lamar Jackson. And Ryan, when you think about storylines heading into camp, one of the things that kept coming up in conjunction with Lamar here in year 3 is the deep passing game. And as we see Marquise Hollywood Brown getting his stretch into day 4 here, that's actually proven itself out of the gate. Just the connection that Lamar's had, obviously with Marquise, but also deep balls to Willie Snead, some of the young guys, and Miles Boykin. That has got to be a positive that it's coming right out of the gate.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's been no bones about it. The Ravens want to go deep, and they want to do it more often and be more consistent with that aspect of the offense. That's really, I think, a big part of this whole next step. You know, the Ravens had the best offense, the highest scoring offense in the league last year. So what can you do to improve on that? That's always the mission of every offseason, right? And I think hitting those deep passes is going to be pivotal in that. Look, Lamar Jackson has a great arm. I mean, he can make every throw, and he has really nice touch on that deep ball. So, you know, we've seen it in spurts where you say, wow, that was a really pretty throw. And now we're just seeing it more often. We're seeing it more consistently. And I think, obviously, with the steps that Hollywood Brown has taken this offseason, that just pairs really well with that. And we're going to see a lot of deep ball completions between Lamar Jackson and Hollywood. So, you know, it's really good to see off the jump. And I think Lamar's looking for that pass. You know, he's looking deep now more often. It's not just settling for that kind of throw over the middle and all those things that he does so well. It's all right. Let's give that play a shot.
Well, Ryan, as we know, this show is interactive. We want to hear from the fans throughout the show, and the best way to do that is to head to Facebook and enter your questions, comments into the comment section, and we'll do our best in the back half of the show to get to those. But also the Twitter poll. It's up every morning at Baltimore Ravens on Twitter. And today's poll, and we probably should ask Lamar about this when he joined us off the top. How many passing yards do you predict Lamar Jackson will have in 2020? Your options, 3,500 plus, 3,000 to 3,500, 2,500 to 3,000, or under 2,500. And last year, just for some context, he was a little over 3,100. And Ryan, I'll point it to you on this. And just a reminder to everybody, when we go to us on camera, that means on the field, they've most likely gone to an install, a period that we can't show. So, Ryan, what do you think on the Twitter poll there for Lamar Jackson, in your opinion?
I think he's over 3,500 this year. I mean, Lamar has been pretty clear. He wants to throw the ball more this year. And we just got done talking about that deep passing attack. So if he hits a few, even just a few more of those, he's over 3,500 from where he was last year. I do think that Lamar will probably run the ball a little bit less than he did last year. And look, they're never going to stop Lamar or discourage him from running. I mean, that's part of what makes Lamar Jackson special, right? I mean, you don't sit here and tell a Ferrari, hey, you gotta keep it in third gear. You know, you can't jack it up there.
What do you know about a Ferrari?
I know nothing about it. I've never stepped foot in a Ferrari, but from what I hear,
yeah,
you know. But yeah, Lamar's going to keep running because that's what makes him so dynamic. And if he needs to, he'll take off. You know, but I think that as he matures as a quarterback, that is the next step. You know, he's going to throw the ball more often, and when he becomes more consistent with that, then they're going to call more of those plays, obviously, and it helps take him out of harm's way somewhat. You know, I know there's been a lot made of how many hits Lamar takes. I don't think he takes all that many or that many big ones. But the more that you can kind of keep him in the pocket, the better, I think, for his long-term future.
Well, before we dive into day 4, Ryan, let's look back at day 3 and some of the top plays presented by Oakley, because there were a few in that final day of padded practice before the day off yesterday, and we saw that deep ball passing game on full display with some of these, with Lamar Jackson finding these young guys over the course of what was a really intense practice. James Prochet with that first over-the-shoulder grab, and then Jackson here finding Miles Boykin. This is J.K. Dobbins running back out of the backfield, and this is the best one of the day. James Prochet again extending
that was full
to
Superman.
Make that grab.
Full Superman.
And then this, a bit of a toe touch maybe near that sideline for Duvernay.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Duvernay, to me, has really stood out. He and Prochet, like I said. I mean, Duvernay has some big-time speed, big-time speed. You look at Hollywood Brown, now, of course, we all know about his speed. But Duvernay on some of these reps, it doesn't look all that different from what I see from Hollywood Brown. If he gets a step around you, around the defensive back, he's gone.
Well, you mentioned Marquise Hollywood Brown, and he's been a big storyline all offseason and early in camp, and we were fortunate enough to have him wired for day 3. So let's take a listen of Marquise on the field.
Can't have no regrets going into the off day. No bad plays. Lock in. You're not locked there, son. You're not locked there. See my boy, and I done it all in a pair of DRs. I'm ready. I'm on. Hey, it's not the time, bro. It's not the time. Yeah, but we gotta be behind the line, bro.
Y'all not rule breakers?
I'm boy bucking. We just won 2 routes and they gave it to the defense. Good work, boy. Young age, learn how to get paid big. Long way from session age.
Let's score some touchdowns.
Yes, sir.
Hey, next time they're gonna set up to the pylon.
Yeah.
That's where you gonna be at. I'm gonna set to the pylon.
We're always trying to get better. Always trying to get better. And that's what you did today. You got better. Even when you didn't feel like you was getting better, you actually got better. And getting better didn't always mean making a catch. It didn't always mean making a catch. And that's what I love about what you guys do.
Good job there, fellas. Keep going. Playmakers on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Playmaker.
Great view into what that group and what Marquise is able to do on the field here during these training camp practices. Ryan, a look back at 2019, we've touched on it a number of times. These are impressive numbers for a guy who admittedly was not healthy, dealing with a foot injury all year, and was dealing with a situation where he was undersized and he held up, made an impact. But man, it feels like 2020 is going to be much bigger. Again, this is your player profile presented by Frank's Red Hots.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was a $175 last year. That's pretty light for an NFL player. Now he's added like 25 pounds. I mean, and it's muscle. You can see the difference clearly in him. I think that's going to make a big difference, and they're going to use him in so many different ways this year. I mean, you look at that average yards per reception. That's going to go way up this season because of that deep passing game that we're talking about. But it's not just that. It's just his ability to move underneath, make quick breaks. I mean, he talked about last year. We all saw it. You know, he often kind of avoided contact, went down early. This year, I think he's going to be making a lot more people miss because of that healthy foot. He can just juke. I mean, we saw the Lamar Jackson juke moves. Hollywood Brown's got a little bit of that magic in those shoes, too.
He's got some juice, no doubt. We're just getting started here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. When we come back, it's out onto the field for some Lamar Jackson live action. So stay with us.
Feel like you've watched all the things? Now there's more to love with Xfinity X1, the ultimate entertainment experience. Like live sports, they're back with the best way to watch. And more streaming apps all in one place. More classics, more premieres, plus more to easily find using just your voice. Hello, more. Where have you been all my life?
Get this offer now with DVR service included for a year. Plus, get speed, coverage, and security with the XFi Gateway. Click, call, or visit a store today.
If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that we really, really miss football. It's coming, and Ravens scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery are already here. Play now for a chance to win up to $100,000, or second chance cash and Ravens prizes like seats for 20 years. Please play safely and responsibly.
This right here is the papadilla, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Latin for better than a sandwich. Even has a better pickle. Papadillas for just $6. Better ingredients, better pizza, better than a sandwich. Papa John's.
Get a Papadilla at papajohns.com for just $6. Papa John's, the official pizza of the Baltimore Ravens. Well, the horn just sounded. That means players are making their way to individual drills. Gives us a chance, Ryan, to really dive into what to watch for today during the individual portion of things. A look at Mark Andrews. This tight end group may look a little bit different, but still going to be counted on.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ravens tight ends, they had more targets, a higher percentage of the targets than any team in the past 30 years. I mean, the Ravens target these tight ends a lot, and now it's obviously changed with the trade of Hayden Hurst to Atlanta. That really mixes things up. But I think that Nick Boyle is going to be a big part of kind of making up for that loss. And that's something that a lot of people haven't talked about. You know, we're all focusing on who's going to win that competition for the third tight end, and that's important. But let's not forget that Nick Boyle had a really good year catching the ball. I mean, 31 catches to Hayden's 30, almost the same amount of yards, 2 touchdowns each. Nick Boyle is a good receiver, okay? And that sometimes gets overshadowed because he's such a good blocker. But Nick Boyle, he came into the league as a good hands, you know, tough guy to bring down, catches the ball consistently. And I think he's only gotten better in terms of his just ability to get open, his route running, all those things. And he talked Wednesday about his ability to learn and getting together with Mark Andrews, even before training camp started, to learn from him on different stems, different just feels for zone coverage, how to get open, route running, all those things. So I think that we will see an even better receiver out of Nick Boyle, and he probably will make up some of those lost targets with the trade.
Well, it's all about developing chemistry with that man, Lamar Jackson, our co-host here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. And you mentioned what Nick Boyle's able to do, what Mark Andrews is able to do. It's those big bodies over the middle, the ability to get downfield as well, that make them such a desirable target for Lamar here. So, again, not a padded practice, but this will still be an important piece in the continued development of this offense over the course of the next few weeks. Because, Ryan, I don't think it's been discussed enough, and I thought John Harbaugh lent some context and perspective on this, just the sense of urgency that exists because no preseason games to give that natural rhythm of camp. Week 1 is just a few weeks away. So as much as we can talk about development of young guys and them finding their way as pros and what this offense is going to look like, things are going to need to start happening as they approach a game against the Browns there in just a few weeks, a little over 20 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for the offense, it's really getting the chemistry of the passing game. And so far, we've seen pretty good chemistry. I mean, I think that they'll operate a little quicker as these practices go on. You know, I think they're still, you can see them almost thinking a little bit still. But it still looks, at this point of camp, with no OTAs and mini camps and things like that, I think it's looked really good. And Lamar Jackson's talked about how he feels good about where the passing game is at. And that's important because, like you say, I mean, these games are not far away. They're not going to get any game reps. Now, the Ravens are going to do some, I think, inter-squad kind of scrimmaging. They're going to make it more real than they typically do during training camp. Today's not one of those days, but they're going to have that before they kick off against the Browns, so that'll be important. But it is, the early signs on where this offense is right now are encouraging.
Again, this is an interactive show, so head to Facebook and put your questions into the comments section, and we'll start to get to them during this individual period. So first up from Vladimir, what's up with Derek Wolfe? How's he looking? Oh, is that yeah, that's a wolf thing. Give me a wolf.
That was a terrible howl. All right.
Well, it took me a while to read and figure out what it meant. I mean, I could have just taken wolf howl. So give me your best wolf
ready?
howl if you're going to be critical.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. Wow. Well done. I think Derek just acknowledged that via just through the helmet there. So look, Derek Wolfe comes over, spent his entire career in Denver, somewhat lost in the shuffle because they have Von Miller, but anyone who knows football, watches consistently out there in Denver knows that Derek Wolfe is a real difference maker and a consistent force across that line. So early returns have been what in your mind?
Yeah, I think they've been good. I mean, I think he's part of that pass rush that I was talking about earlier that's looked good. Now, I think he's still obviously getting his legs and figuring out this defense, but Derek Wolfe is just a solid, consistent player. I mean, he's a worker. One thing that John Harbaugh talked about with him is when the Ravens signed him, Derek Wolfe was banging on John Harbaugh's door to get the playbook immediately. I mean, texting him like, all right, where's it at? You sent it yet? You got it? You know, I mean, Derek Wolfe is a guy who's a hard worker. He's devoted to his craft. I think that he's going to fit in really well here as a kind of gritty player who can set things up for other players. He did that so well in Denver for Von Miller. Von Miller talked about how, you know, he wouldn't have had nearly as many sacks if it weren't for Derek Wolfe drawing some of those offensive linemen and setting things up for him. So, you know, and then if you set things up for Derek Wolfe, if he's the featured guy on the blitz or the pass rush, he can do it too. I mean, he's coming off a career-high 7 sacks, I think, in 12 games. It was a shortened season for him, and he was putting up some good numbers. So Derek Wolfe, I think, is a great addition. Now, you know, let's not forget, the Ravens signed Michael Brockers first. That's who they were going after, and that fell through. To land Derek Wolfe after that, whew, that's a pretty good spot to be.
So it's not just fans of the garden variety on Facebook. We got celebrities chiming in as well. Eric Weddle, a fan favorite, a favorite to all of us here. Hope all is well. Erica checks in with at Ravens, Calais Campbell, such a great pickup. So he's clearly been watching the show. Been learning a lot from you and I, Ryan, about how Calais has come in here and immediately made an impact, not just with his play, but with his voice. And one thing that I think we haven't touched on as much as we've talked about Calais is how much he's going to help that competition at right guard and helping determine who should be in there, Fluke or Powers, et cetera, because he's been given that group fits early in the padded portion of things.
Yeah, absolutely. DJ Fluker was like, yeah, he wins some of the reps. Yeah, I get some too, but he definitely will help with that. I mean, not only helping the defensive lineman, but like you're saying, the offensive lineman. I mean, here's a guy who he's a savvy veteran, obviously a physical presence. He's going to teach these offensive linemen a lot about what it takes to block a premier defensive lineman. I agree with Eric Weddle. I mean, you look at some of the veteran signings the Ravens have made over the years, and there's been a lot of really good ones.
I mean, he's a testament to it.
Including Eric Weddle. Exactly.
I
mean, I said that he's kind of like the Mark Ingram of the offense.
Yep.
Another great comparison is just he's the next Eric Weddle. I mean, because Eric Weddle came in here, was a great leader from day one. Brought an infectious energy to get after it in the weight room, get after it in film study, all those things. Calais Campbell's the same thing, I mean, he reminds me of Weddle just with his happy-go-lucky attitude, too,
Sure.
Always smiling, all those things. Eric Weddle was a fantastic Raven. I think Calais Campbell's going to be everything. It's going to be the same story with him.
And part of that, too, part of that equation, which we saw from Weddle, we saw from Mark Ingram last year, is working with some of the young guys, because as much as it's going to be on Calais and Derek Wolfe, they're going to need that depth behind them. Another question coming in here from Anthony. Will we see more of the three-man Heisman winners offense, that Heisman package that picked up some steam last year with Mark Ingram, Lamar Jackson, and RG3? I don't know, and we're not supposed to talk scheme here, even though we get to watch the team portions. But look, I think everything's on the table for Greg Roman, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can we say we hope to? I mean, it's fun. I'm down for more of that. I do think that Greg Roman made some comments earlier this offseason that really caught my attention. And that was, he said, you want to change things, obviously. You have to keep things fresh, because everybody in the NFL, they'll catch up to you if you don't stay fresh. You got to stay ahead of the game. But at the same time, you don't want to get away from what you really do well. He's a believer in that. Do one thing really, really well. Be the best at it. And then you can start to add things. So I think the Ravens are going to reestablish that running game. That's what they did really well. I mean, they broke an NFL record last year for team rushing. So I think they're going to establish that, and then they'll work off that. But you don't want to start adding all these new pieces because you're worried about people catching up to you and, figuring out this offense. And especially in the offseason where you miss OTAs, where you miss minicamp, all those things, you don't want to start getting too fancy with the wrinkles. So I think that Greg Roman will do a good job of doing what the Ravens do best, making sure they do that well, and then build off of there. Maybe that'll include some more of the Heisman package, maybe not, I don't know. But, I think that Greg Roman will have this offense humming by week one.
This is a theme, Ryan, across the league, though. The mystery this offseason and heading into week one is unlike anything we've seen, because as vanilla as teams and offenses and defenses will be in the preseason, you can't help but debut some aspects to your general philosophy, because, look, guys are going to go out there and play, and you don't want anyone getting hurt or looking embarrassed. So there's none of that this year. Mm-hmm. The first time teams are going to see anything from opponents across the league is going to be week one. So that does give a team like the Ravens that have so much continuity within the staff and the personnel a chance to do some wild things right out of the gate. So keep those comments coming in here as we bounce around. It is a lighter day here, at least at the individual portions. And, look,
yeah.
It's not all just questions. A compliment to Ryan Mink. That wolf howl was fire, which I hear the kids say, and that means really good, right?
I appreciate it. I've been working on it. I think it's really a shame that we're not going to have a packed M&T Bank Stadium, because that place could get the howl going, I bet, when Derek Wolfe made a sack. I'm a little upset about that. But thank you. I appreciate that. I'll work on it some more. Evan, you got to start working on your howl. I mean, that was bad.
That's legitimate. I apologize for my efforts. You've set the bar high. Look, we're just getting started here. Still some more individual drills to view. Coming up next, we'll look at the offensive line, maybe some of the wide receivers and DBs. Stay with us here on Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity.
Wawa hoagies are a winning pick for game day. Every hoagie's made with the ingredients you crave in varieties you love. From toasty cheesesteak to mouthwatering meatball, Italian, and more. There's a hoagie for every mood and every appetite. Stop in, order ahead with the Wawa mobile app, or get it delivered. When you're planning for the game, we have you covered with Wawa Catering. Make your game day a winner with Wawa hoagies, snacks, and drinks. Wawa is the official hoagie of the Baltimore Ravens. Gotta have a Wawa.
You can see it in the eyes of every Ravens fan. An unwavering commitment to the team they love. A pride so vibrant, it can be seen from miles away. A community that's fully committed to their team and shows up week after week to help chase a championship. To the Ravens flock, to Chet starters, to those who bleed purple, M&T Bank wants to say, we're your biggest fan.
No, this ain't no sandwich, because on a sandwich, they ask you if you want cheese. But on a papadilla, cheese is what's holding the whole operation together. Get one now for just $6. Better ingredients, better pizza, better than a sandwich. Papa John's.
Tune in to WBAL TV tonight at 8 p.m. to relive the excitement of last season's Ravens-Seahawks game. It's a re-air of the entire broadcast. It's the famous game for Lamar Jackson's call to go for it, coach, on a critical 4th down and run into the end zone. Don't miss it tonight at 8 p.m. on WBAL. Ryan, that was the game in a lot of people's minds, mine included, Week 7, out in Seattle in the rain, where I thought this team, or that year's team, really established themselves as the top team in the NFL and Lamar as an MVP candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not many teams win in Seattle, period. And the Seahawks had a really good team last year. That was a statement game. You know, like you said, not only for the team, but for Lamar Jackson. I think that the fire that he showed in that moment, going to the sideline and saying, let's go for it, you know, and how angry he was, and then to deliver in that moment with the touchdown, that said a lot about him. It proved a lot to his teammates, as if they didn't know it already. They already knew he was the leader, but that was a signature play for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, seasons are about moments, and you think about that game. Also, the addition of Marcus Peters, he makes that pick 6, and that was as that defense that out of the gate had some issues. They made the additions of Bynes, L.J. Fort, the trade for Marcus Peters, and man, did it click out in the Pacific Northwest. And then there's the bye week, and you back it up with the win against the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. So, look, that'll be, as much as we'd love to be watching live football, I'm sure preseason games for fans are our chance to get to know the team better. Hopefully we're doing that here with these individual drills. But tune in tonight at 8 p.m. on WBAL to at least relive what was a special time and maybe a sign of what things will look like here in 2020. So back to Facebook for your comments and questions. How's DJ Fluker looking? Will he be a good replacement for Yanda's spot? I think the O-line will look so good. Look, he hasn't necessarily cemented that spot, but it's a good way to kick off this conversation, Ryan, because I thought John Harbaugh, thankfully, was pretty transparent about the approach to this competition and when he would like to have that spot solidified. He said, look, it could go up to game week ahead of week 1, but ideally prior to that game week, so looking around August 31st, they'd like to know who's stepping in for Marshall Yanda at least out of the gate.
Well, look at the wiggle on DJ Fluker there, not just as a blocker, but as the guy acting as the pass rusher. You see the mobility. I mean, and then second off, look at him standing next to Bradley Bozeman. I mean, holy moly, this is a large human being. And DJ Fluker, I mean, his offseason was impressive. For a veteran, you know, with his experience, to dedicate himself the way he did over the offseason to get in shape. You know, a lot of veterans are like, you know, whatever, I am what I am at this point. I mean, DJ Fluker got up to close to 400 pounds. So this is a big man. And for him to dedicate himself this offseason, lose much weight as he did, I mean, he cut his body fat in half. Went from 44% to 22%. I'm about the 44% range myself, Evan. I don't know about you, but I'm not close to that 22% that DJ Fluker's at. So, I mean, it's impressive what he's done, and I think he's looked really good so far this offseason, or in training camp, I mean. Guy is physical. He fits what the Ravens want to do up front. He's moving well, and he needs to do that because Greg Roman's offensive line, they do a lot of pooling and different things like that. You go back and look at what Marshall Yonda did. He's not just in a phone booth. They have him moving. So DJ Fluker, I think, has been A+ so far, and I do think that he probably is the leader to take that spot.
Yeah, the competition continues here in day 4 of training camp in terms of padded practices, helmets, and shells today. Next question up. Who's going to be the defensive sleeper this year, Tavon Young or Deshaun Elliott? It was Chuck Clark last season. So a good chance here, Ryan, to talk about Elliott, but also Tavon Young, back after another injury-marred season. But when he's healthy, we know that he really solidifies that slot corner position.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to call Tavon Young a sleeper considering he got paid to be he's the highest paid slot cornerback when he signed his contract here a year or so ago. But yeah, I agree. I mean, in terms of comeback player of the year, Tavon Young for the Ravens, I think, is that guy. He's going to make a huge difference in this secondary because not only because of the player he is, which is a playmaker, I mean, and he is sticky. I mean, you do not see much separation between him and the wide receiver, and we've seen that. He looks like he's back to
and such a sure
Tavon.
tackler, too, at that size.
I mean, at his size, he is a physical, scrappy dude. That's just what he's always been coming out of Temple, just scrappy. And so I think Tavon Young will make a big difference because of who he is. He's a playmaker. He can get sacks. He can blitz. He can get interceptions. But he also allows Marlon Humphrey to go back outside and play where he's naturally best. So Tavon Young, I think, has a ripple effect on this entire secondary. So he is a really big addition. Can I say who my defensive sleeper is, though?
Absolutely. I think that was the initial question.
Yeah. I think it's L.J. Fort. I think that people are kind of sleeping on L.J. Fort a little bit. And I do think that he's probably going to be a starter right alongside Patrick Queen to begin this season. And the veteran inside linebacker, I think, is a better player than people give him credit for.
There's Miles Boykin as we get a view of the wide receiving core as they're working through this individual period in helmet and shells. Miles Boykin has been a name that's come up a lot here in those first few days of being back out on the practice field in full effect with his ability to make plays. He looks much more comfortable, Ryan, here in year 2. And I know you've had a chance to spend some time with him. He joined the lounge, which is always an honor early in training camp as these guys get going here early in practice day number 4.
Yeah, we had Miles on this week, and I mean, he's just a really insightful guy and a really kind of mature player. You know, for a second-year guy, very mature. And, you know, Garrett and I asked him, what's it like having these expectations heaped on your shoulders? I mean, really, I think the expectation is he's going to be the starter opposite Hollywood, and for this Ravens offense and the passing attack to take the next step, he's going to be a big part of that. And now, you know, with all the reports about Des Bryant working out, there's a lot more. So I think that with Miles, I was impressed by his answer because he said, I don't care. I don't care about all the outside expectations for me and all that. I don't listen to that one bit. It's what I have for myself, and I have high expectations for what I'm going to do and what I'm going to bring this team. So it was kind of cool to see how he's able to block out, you know, me and you, all the noise coming from us.
Yeah, I think in all seriousness, we probably spend too much time worrying about how these guys feel. I mean, they've spent their entire lives under a microscope, and they're pretty confident, as they should be, in their ability to do things. So as this group gets some work in here, a little bit of quick passing drill here across the 20-yard line, and the signs from Duvernay and Prochet have been positive. Marquise, we've touched on a lot. And then as a group, I think the idea is that there's going to be more from this wide receiving core. And you have to love, as you mentioned, discussion about Des Bryant, just the way they've responded these first few days with just making big plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the Ravens reportedly had Des in yesterday for that workout. But, I don't think Baltimore is in a position where they have to add somebody to this wide receiver group. I mean, it's looked good so far.
Which is a good position to be in.
Exactly. It's looked good so far, so I think they can kind of take their time and evaluate what they have and then see where they're at. But, certainly Miles Boykin and this whole group, I think, has made a statement that we're young, sure, and, we haven't made as many catches in NFL games yet in our career and all that, but we can do some damage this year. And, one thing I really like about this group, and this drill kind of accentuates it, is how good of hands they all have. I mean, the Ravens drafted 2 wide receivers this year that hardly dropped the ball over their college career. Hollywood Brown, I think that's an underrated facet of his game, is how good a hands he has and how well he tracks the ball down the field and just makes plays. So, that's one thing is if you're not going to throw the ball a ton because the Ravens run it so much, they don't throw it as often as other teams. Well, then you got to make the plays when they're there, and this wide receiver core can do that.
All right, Brandon, you said it. You guys should show the 2 rookie linebackers so we can see how bright the future stars are looking. Your wish at times will be our command, and there is a look at the linebackers getting some work done on the sled. Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, the 2 top picks, maybe the future at the inside linebacker position. You mentioned L.J. Fort, and I completely agree. At least out of the gate, it would make sense to me, unless Malik absolutely steals this job, to allow Queen to be paired with a vet who's got complete command of the defense. But Malik Harrison is no doubt going to be part of the mix this season and then for years to come. And that's a fun thing for fans to have, is the chance to invest in a Patrick Queen, a Malik Harrison, to be the center of the defense for at least a few seasons.
Yeah, I've been impressed with both the rookie inside linebackers. I mean, Patrick Queen, one thing that just impresses me is how comfortable he looks. You see this guy, and he seems like he's got the checks, the communication. He doesn't seem like he's kind of, he's just kind of, his head is spinning. He knows what he's doing out there, and he's moving around really well. I mean, that's who he is. This guy is one of the more athletic inside linebackers that you're going to see. And so I've been impressed with him so far. And then with Malik Harrison, we saw some really good one-on-one drills with him the other day on Wednesday's practice. John Harbaugh kind of cleared it out and said, all right, let's do some one-on-one battles here. And those are always fun because the whole team's watching. You can really focus in on something. And Malik had a couple of pass deflections, one deep on a deep pass to Charles Scarf where, he couldn't quite get his head turned around, but he put that hand up just in the right position to knock the ball away, and then one on a shorter outbreaking route to Scarf. So you see how well Malik Harrison moves. He was kind of typecast, I think, a little bit unfairly as, he's an in the box, downhill kind of run stuffer. Malik Harrison has the athleticism to move and be in coverage, and you're seeing it right here.
Malik Harrison showing that athleticism as we bounce back to Lamar Jackson, who joined us at the top of the show, which was a blast. A look back, or a revisit, if you will, to our Twitter poll. How many passing yards do you predict quarterback Lamar Jackson will have in 2020? And the people have spoken, and they're looking at that. Was it the 3,500 plus, Ryan?
Yep.
Yeah, and that does fit the script here. I mean, he was at 3,100, a little over last season, and there's no reason to believe that he can't jump that number up with a sort of recommitment or an emphasis on getting the ball downfield as you look at those sparkling stats from his MVP campaign. And one thing I've thought a lot about, Ryan, when it comes to the numbers, as much as we can focus on them, and look, the Mahomes model, it has been discussed by ourselves and many in year 3. Just because the numbers might not look this way this season for whatever reason, to me, that isn't as important as the general command and obviously the overall performance of the offense and the team in general.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Mahomes didn't have statistically the year last year that he did the year
missed
prior.
games because he was hurt, too.
Yeah, the part of it was because he was hurt, but, it ended up okay.
Sure.
Patrick Mahomes.
That's the point. It's
exactly.
If people shouldn't get too overwhelmed by whether or not he's keeping that statistical pace, because it's more about the efficiency and work of this group as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's going to be hard for Lamar Jackson to lead the NFL in touchdown passes again. I mean, 36 touchdowns. And how many interceptions did he have? 7. I mean, that's unreal. That's just unreal. Now, he does a great job. That speaks to who he is in the red zone, and he's tough in the red zone because he can run it or throw it, and he's so good in tight spaces over the middle of the field. So I do think over his career, naturally, he is going to be a good quarterback and very efficient in the red zone, but to have that level of efficiency is hard to replicate. And so I agree with you. Maybe it doesn't look exactly the same, but if he gets his completion percentage up, which I think he certainly can as he just becomes a more accurate passer and reads defenses better, then that's going to be a big step for him too.
All right, Caleb wants to know about Jimmy Smith. He was a discussion after day 3.
Yeah.
Has dropped about 12 pounds, much leaner, had a big hit on Nick Boyle on the goal line that had Nick Boyle smiling during his presser about how he maybe didn't see Jimmy Smith coming. I mean, we saw some images from it, at least on social media, about how the defense responded to Jimmy Smith, who came back to the team after a brief stint in free agency. He's been part of this defense for so many years, and he looks revived, Ryan, in what can be best described as sort of the back end of his career.
Yeah, you know, and to this hybrid safety cornerback role, I think a little bit too much has been made out of that. Yeah, there's the celebration for Jimmy.
Great.
That's pretty cool. You know, I don't think that all of a sudden Jimmy Smith is a safety. You know, I mean, that's not how John Harbaugh's talked about it. Jimmy Smith is a corner. That's what he does. Now, you know, I think that because of who they have and the depth they have at cornerback, they have their starters with Marlon and Marcus Peters. They can use Jimmy as more of a kind of an assignment piece. He's like a chess piece. And Wink Martindale has talked about how the NFL has kind of become like the NBA. It's all about matchups and getting the best matchups. And Jimmy Smith, because of the kind of player he is, his physicality, his size, all those things, he's a perfect matchup against some bigger tight ends, you know, bigger wide receivers, and you can kind of utilize him in a bunch of different ways, and that's how Wink Martindale likes to operate his defense. You know, it's not necessarily that everybody's plugged into this certain position, and here's your starters, and they're going to play the whole game. It mixes and matches. He mixes and matches a lot, and Jimmy Smith is a great chess piece for him.
Adaptability is going to be a term you're going to hear a lot throughout this season for so many reasons, and J.K. Dobbins provides that to the running back group, because early in camp, as we look at Deacon James's comment here, Dobbins, an animal, best steal in the draft, people sleeping. So I don't know if many people are sleeping on J.K. Dobbins anymore, because at least those that have been here and watched practice have seen just how seamlessly he's made his way into the physicality and the intensity of a pro practice during those first 3 days of padded work. And we've talked about it, and I think it'll continue to be a discussion point, how J.K. Dobbins fits into what is, I don't want to say crowded, because that's a negative connotation, but maybe busy backfield.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hope people are sleeping on J.K. Dobbins so I can get him in the middle late rounds of my fantasy draft. You know, fantasy, keep sleeping, because this guy is really good. You know, I've been impressed with just how quick he is. You know, we saw a little bit of his competitive side during Wednesday's practice. He and Deshaun Elliott were going back and forth with a little war of the words, and then he got into it with, I think, Nigel Warrior, and John Harbaugh stepped in between them. But you see J.K. Dobbins, he's a smiley guy and fun-loving guy, and I love his personality, but he can turn it on. He can get a little competitive out there, too, so that's good to see from the rookie. And I think that he's going to get ample opportunities this year working alongside Mark Ingram. I mean, he's too good not to give reps to, and he can be used in a variety of different ways. He keeps everybody fresher, including Mark. So I just think he's a fantastic addition.
And much like adaptability, depth is so valuable this season. And who knows how things kind of work themselves out here over the next few weeks, and then early in the season when it comes to the depth chart. We have no real sense of a two deep at this point, but look, as we mentioned, week one is right around the corner. So a couple more minutes here of individual drills. Again, the guys are in shells and helmets, so a little bit of a lighter feel here, at least out of the gate, and we'll keep rolling with your comments and questions on Facebook. Who has more yards this year, guys, Andrews or Hollywood? That's a good question, because you think about it. I mean, I feel pretty good about saying Andrews in the reception department, Ryan, but if Hollywood's healthy and making plays downfield, those yards are going to pile up.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think Marquise Brown probably puts up more total yards than Mark Andrews does this year, and I don't think it's too crazy to say that both of them top 1,000. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Andrews is right around that number, because, you know, we talked about Nick Boyle taking a little bit more off of, you know, Hayden Hurst's plate, so to say. Mark Andrews is going to get more targets, too, because Hayden Hurst isn't there. And, I mean, we already have seen the chemistry he has with Lamar Jackson, and he's only going to get better. I mean, let's not forget, Mark Andrews is heading into only his 3rd season. And this is a young player still who's still refining his game. I think that he is determined to prove that he is one of the best tight ends, if not the best. I mean, why not? Shoot for the top. I know there's some other really good tight ends out there, Kelsey and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump you there. I mean,
not?
I think Mark Andrews, if he stays healthy, to me is all pro caliber this year. I'm a big fan of Travis Kelsey and Zach Ertz, and obviously George Kittle, but man, Mark Andrews is right there, and he's looked great early in camp. And as we start to wrap up our individual period here, another look at the edge rushers, the defensive line. This is a great drill to show that athleticism, that bend necessary as Pernell McPhee makes his way through, and just the ability to slap and attack the quarterback who, at least in theory, is that middle pad.
Yeah, exactly. This is a good drill. I want to see Jalen Ferguson go through this. I'm excited to see him today. I think his return to the practice field, this is his first one of since we started with padded practices. And he's going to be a big part of this defense. I mean, Jalen Ferguson entering his second year, we kind of lose focus him a little bit. But here's a guy who got more starting experience than most rookies get on the Ravens defense because of the legacy and the players that the Ravens have had on defense, particularly at outside linebacker. I mean, how many guys had to wait their turn behind Terrell Suggs? Jalen Ferguson got some really quality reps, and he broke Suggs' college sack record. So I expect a lot more from him in the pass rush department too.
Patrick Queen, middle of your screen, just a great look at him in his position here as they work through some of the coverage drills for that linebacker position. And again, this seems to be more of a technical day, and that is the horn that usually at this period of the morning signifies the end of our work and the team period, which again, we can't show you for competitive reasons, but make sure to stay locked in here because live press conferences are coming up after practice with John Harbaugh, Chuck Clark, LJ Fort, and Patrick Queen. They're also top plays, so you won't miss out on some of the action during the team period. So top plays later, and we'll be right back here tomorrow morning around 9 a.m. Eastern for another edition of Training Camp Live. For Ryan Mink, I'm Evan Washburn. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning.